It was September 2018, and I was preparing my belongings for a camping trip. Usually, I preferred to use the first week of my annual leave for this purpose, even though I knew I would never go there again. I didn't want to disclose the location to you. I mostly go camping alone without using my phone. I only keep it with me in case of an emergency where I might be able to catch a signal by chance. During the camping trip, which lasts about 5 or 6 days, I completely disconnect from everything and return home feeling completely relaxed. As you can understand, this is the most fulfilling vacation for me. With the help of my mother, who also assisted me in preparing, I packed enough food, drinks, equipment for making a fire, and many other camping essentials into my bag. My mother kept saying to me, "Please be careful, my son." "Don't worry, Mom. I'll come back without any trouble, just like always. It's not a place with many aggressive animals, so don't worry," I said. If I were to list everything I brought with me, it would take quite a long time. I got off the bus in the foothills of the mountain at 5 o'clock in the morning and started moving towards the area where I constantly camp, which cannot be reached by car or on foot. I was going to walk for about 3 hours, and although it exhausted me immensely, I enjoyed this challenging hike and light climbing that I did while taking breaks. Finally, I arrived at my camping spot. I completed the journey smoothly without hearing any predatory sounds. I set up my tent, sorted out my lights, set up my foldable table and chair, collected enough firewood and twigs, and by then it was already 7:00 p.m. I prepared and ate my meal and sat by the fire. Taking out my Rambo knife from my belt, I started carving the leftover branches I'd collected, trying to shape them into something. Whatever came to my mind at that moment. I went to sleep at 9:15 p.m. and woke up at 5:30 in the morning. I'll speed up the narration now. I just wanted to provide enough background. Sorry for that. The first 3 days went smoothly without any issues, until the night of the 4th day. I woke up to a loud rustling sound coming from a bush right next to my camping site. When I checked the time, it was 2:25. At first, I didn't pay much attention to the sound. I thought it might be an animal in the forest, but I could hear someone walking right in front of my tent. They were walking very slowly, probably wearing boots. I tried my best to remain calm. I had my knife by the corner of my tent and my gun in my bag in case a predator tried to attack me. Slowly, I reached for the knife handle so that I could have it ready, and I continued listening attentively. Whoever was outside seemed to be cautiously exploring my camping area. However, they were just walking around the perimeter. I listened to them quietly for about 30 minutes, and I reached a point where I couldn't maintain my composure anymore and started getting scared. I couldn't take it anymore, and I said, "Who's there? What are you trying to do? I have a weapon. It would be better if you identify yourself or leave immediately." Suddenly, all the noise stopped. I was truly terrified to go outside, but I had to do something. Since there was no response, I felt extremely endangered and held my flashlight to the door of my tent without opening it, as if it would be of any use. I shined it to my right, then to my left. No sound or reflection, but from behind my tent, I heard a very faint sound. I quickly turned around and pointed the flashlight in that direction, and suddenly I saw its reflection. The reflection of its lower body. It had large legs and something resembling a spear in its hand. In a reflex, I screamed, "What do you want from me?" It was still standing there, and suddenly it started walking backward. Its reflection disappeared, and I heard the rustling as it disappeared among the bushes. I quickly checked my watch. It was 3:11 in the middle of the night. It felt like I was on pins and needles until morning. At 6 a.m., I slowly came out of my tent, fearing a surprise waiting for me. I considered packing up and leaving, but I didn't want to do that. If it wanted to harm me, it would have tried, right? Nothing was stolen from my campsite either. Maybe it was just a crazy person, but how could they have come here? The nearest village was approximately 12 km away. No, I won't leave. I won't let it ruin my once. I won't let it ruin my once. Your relaxing vacation. I continued with my activities throughout the day. When evening approached, I took out my night vision camera from my bag and carefully set it up on a tree, capturing a full view of the campsite. I didn't really want to see what it was, but at least if something happened to me, it could serve as evidence. Of course, I hadn't informed the gendarmerie, local police, about my camping trip. Only my family and close friends knew my location and how long I would stay. As darkness fell, I felt an extreme shiver. Every sound in the forest made me react excessively and startle. I checked the time. It was 20, 1, 10, and right at that moment, a terrifying scream echoed from the depths of the forest. I was so frightened that I was about to flee from the campsite, but in a sudden panic, I entered the tent without even extinguishing the fire. I quickly took out my phone from my pocket, but I had forgotten to pair the camera with my phone. Damn, I said to myself. Something was running towards my campsite. It was running so heavily that it seemed like the ground was shaking. The sounds of rustling bushes and running were getting closer. It rushed into my campsite, breathing heavily like a bull. It kicked the ground, throwing dirt into the fire, extinguishing it with a single gesture, the bastard. I was holding my Rambo knife in a reverse stabbing position. I covered my mouth with my hand, but it was already evident where I was. It was a big mistake to enter the tent. I heard it coming closer to the tent, still breathing heavily. Just as it was out to grab the tent zipper, I dropped the gun from my waist while trying to quickly draw it, overwhelmed by excitement. The sound it made when it hit the ground confirmed that it was a gun, and it quickly threw itself to the right side of the tent. I screamed in fear and quickly grabbed the gun. There was complete silence. It was clear that it was still standing in its place, unnoticed by me. Who are you? What do you want from me? No sound. The bastard wasn't even breathing. Suddenly, it screamed and ran into the depths of the forest. I trembled all over with fear. If I survive until morning, the first thing I'll do is get out of here, I said to myself. I sat motionless for about 3 hours, barely making a sound, just listening to the noises around me. The buzzing insects were so loud that they drowned out almost everything else. Finally, I reached for my water bottle to take a drink. I mustered up the courage to go outside and grab the camera to see what or who it was. But I was terrified to move. When I checked the time, it was 4:01 in the morning. I had been still for so long that my whole body was tingling, and I was still trembling with fear. It was pitch dark outside, and I hadn't heard a single sound for hours. Slowly, I unzipped the tent and peered outside, scanning as far as I could see and quickly walked towards a tree. I was moving blindly. I couldn't see a thing. I reached out my hand to the tree but couldn't find it. In the meantime, a putrid smell reached my nose. But I didn't pay much attention to it. I firmly grasped the tree and extended my arm further. Feeling the camera hit the ground, with the night vision on, I quickly spotted it and picked it up from the ground. Just as I did, I heard a rustling sound right next to me, and I started running towards the tent. I instinctively pointed the camera towards the tent, and there it was, right in front of the tent. It had tightly gripped its spear and was waiting for me to come closer. I quickly started running to the right into the depths of the forest. I couldn't see ahead. I ran, lifting my knees high to avoid stumbling. I could hear the sound of something chasing me from behind. Damn it, I was being chased. Suddenly, I turned left and started running. I kept getting caught on trees and bushes. The bastard was still chasing me. My foot got caught, and I fell to the ground. I quickly rolled myself into the nearby bushes and hid inside. I pointed the camera in the direction of the running sound. I saw it for about 3 seconds, staring at it with night vision, and then turned off my camera. It was a hulking figure dressed entirely in black. It wore a torn-up shirt and pants, and had boots on. It smelled like a corpse, and as it got closer, I could smell its repugnant odor. Its face was covered in scratches, with no hair or beard. Its eyes looked like they were about to pop out of their sockets. Its skin seemed burnt. The spear it held was covered in dried blood. Its stood right beside me and yelled loudly. It looked around for about 15 minutes. During that time, I had my hand over my mouth, barely breathing. The sun was starting to peek through the sky. It looked up and muttered something to itself, then ran off. I swear, for the first time that night, I felt a deep sense of relief. It seemed like it didn't like being out in the daylight. After it left, I waited in the same spot for about 30 minutes. Using my compass, it took me about an hour and a half to find my campsite. I had followed the crushed grass on the ground to locate it. I quickly gathered my belongings in a haphazard manner and hit the road. My phone started getting a signal as I neared the road. I immediately tried to contact the gendarmerie, local police, and report the incident. Carefully looking around me, I descended down. My whole body was in pain. Finally, my phone started getting reception, and I reported the incident, trying to reach the authorities as quickly as possible. I provided them with detailed information and an account of what had happened. The gendarme officer questioning me said, "Brother, you should have informed us before going to the camp. What if something had happened to you? If we couldn't reach you after the designated day, we would have started searching for you. Brother, you're absolutely right, but thankfully nothing happened to me. 3 other people like you came to this area for camping in the past months, but we couldn't reach them. We haven't found them dead or alive. Don't you follow the news at all?" They transferred the footage I captured to their own devices. They informed my family, and about 2 hours later, they kindly escorted me home. My family was really frightened. I showed them the footage and narrated the incident while they watched. One of the most chilling aspects of the incident was this. When we watched the camera recordings with my family, we saw them. Yes, them, because there were 2 of them, and one of them was always next to my tent, even when I was leaving. They were standing right behind me. The other one appears when they walk towards the tree where the camera was placed. You remember that I dropped the camera on the ground when I picked it up. At that moment, it enters the frame, and I hear the repugnant smell and the rustling sound coming from that scoundrel. The luckiest part for me was that when he was about to strike me with his spear, the sound he made alerted me, and I quickly moved away from there. After watching the footage, I started trembling and crying out of anger. If you're curious about my condition, let me tell you. I am completely psychologically worn out. I only have minor scratches, and I will never go camping in that area again for the rest of my life. In fact, I don't plan on going camping for a very long time, especially not alone, and it's been about 4 months, but they still haven't found any trace of them. If you ever go camping, make sure to listen carefully to the sounds around you and be prepared for any situation. If you enjoy this type of content and want to see more of it, feel free to subscribe and turn notifications on. Have a nice day, and thank you for commenting and interacting.